Welcome to EdTech Monday Uganda, brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation in partnership with the Innovation Village through the EdTech Lab. EdTech Monday Uganda is a platform to engage Uganda's EdTech community and other relevant stakeholders that include government and private sector and the donors on the emerging topics of education and how technology can address these challenges. Of course, EdTech Monday Uganda is held once every month, and we dissect the education sector, the future of education, and the available opportunities to grow in this sector. In this episode, we shall discuss the top education challenges that technology can address, answering some key and critical questions like, what are the most pressing challenges we need to address in education in the next 5 years? What role can technology play in those improvements? And joining me today in the studio today are our expert panelists. We have Meralyn Mungereza, who is a country manager at the Aga Khan Foundation in Uganda. We have Richard James Mukaaga, who is a project coordinator at the National ICT Initiatives Support Program at the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. And we have Mr. Godfrey Ashaba, who is a head teacher at the Hillside Primary School. And I want to start the conversation, of course, with Godfrey. Godfrey, you've just been through a tremendous year of trying to educate your pupils, and they've produced some amazing results in the primary leaving examinations. I want to start by asking you, how has the last year been like for you in terms of exams and in terms of educating the young people?
Thank you so much, Raymond. I'm glad you've had me here. As a school, it hasn't been very easy. You are aware our children went home, our learners went home last year in March. And since then, apart from those in upper primary, we've not had our pre-primary back and lower primary, that is P1, P2, P3. They've been home. And even those who came to school were there briefly, and because of the pandemic, they were sent back home. So frankly speaking, I don't think it has been the easiest of the times for us as a school and for our dear learners and the parents. And it isn't only Hillside. I think the whole country, the whole world has been greatly affected by this pandemic, and particularly the education institutions, Raymond.
Godfrey, what are some of the challenges that you've identified with your learners in this last 1 year as you taught them?
One, our learners were used to being in schools. This is the first time we are having learners home for such a long time. Raymond, you were once in school. I don't think there is any time we are out of school for even 5 months, 6 months. So for our learners, it hasn't been easy. They miss school. The learners miss school. The learners miss their friends. I get several messages from parents. I get several messages from the children, from our dear teachers. So learners being at home, not learning. Some of them are young, too young to understand exactly what is happening. The 5-year-olds, the 6, someone will ask you, when is COVID going such that I can come? When are people dying? And they finish dying, and then we go back to our school. So it's not been very easy for the learners. It's not been very easy for the institutions of learning and the staff within them.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. I want to bring in Meralyn now. And one of the key questions that I want to ask is really, what challenges have you identified as a member of the private sector? What challenges have you identified in the last 1 year that you think need immediate resolution for learners to stay the path, for continuity in education to happen, but also for us to address the critical challenge of access to education?
I think I would say that some of the challenges that Godfrey is talking about are more sort of urban challenges. They're the challenges of a school that is already resourced, a school that was able to have continued learning, a school that had parents with the resources to continue support learning. These are challenges of a very specific category of the population, which I think is quite limited to Kampala and Central. But he had also touched on something that I want to mention in terms of challenges for the broader country overall. I think one of those is the issue of inclusion of, for example, girls in school. What we saw with this lockdown is that girls, I think we saw the statistics, girls being impregnated and not coming to class, or girls coming to sit for exams when they're delivering babies. These are not scenes that you usually find here in Kampala. These are scenes outside there. And these are the challenges that we need to ask ourselves about, how the classroom of tomorrow is going to look different from the classroom of yesterday because the girls are absent there's a big portion of girls who are absent and have now changed their status from children and learners to mothers at home. So we need to look at that kind of challenge that has not been mentioned. The issue of the disparity, I think, Godfrey mentioned something very important. Hillside has had resources and the parents have been able to invest in this online learning, but you find that that means that the gap for the child out there is only growing. It's been almost 2 years now outside school, and the longer the child stays out of school in already a resource-challenged environment, the less likely they are to return to that school, which will be different compared to Hillside, where the parents had options of taking their children, perhaps even with international school. So I think that that's another challenge that we need to look at beyond maybe Kampala and Central. Finally, one more challenge that I want to mention is the big question of the early childhood, sort of level, the nursery schools. Nursery schools have, as far as we're concerned, completely vanished because this is an education provided by private sector, and since last year they have been closed. I do not know any business which can survive a year plus of closure. So if ECD is purely provided by private sector and they have been closed, we can effectively say that this service or this entire sector, as we know it, has vanished. What does that mean for the parent of tomorrow who has the child from 3 to 6? What does that look like for us? So I think having sort of broadened the level of challenge that we are dealing with to include those aspects that I think come to mind for me, I would say that one thing, technology is a tool. There's no doubt about the power of technology, but we must remember that it is just a tool. We need to understand education and how it's been designed originally, and how can we achieve those goals with technology. At the end of the day, technology cannot replace a teacher. Teachers will always be required in the classroom. And education, the purpose of education has always been that human interaction, the building of multiple skills. How do I deal with different people? How do I deal with divergent views? How do I learn from the bully who takes my ruler, who takes my pencil? How do I learn to keep time to run to the bus to school or to be in class on time? There's so many skills outside the reading, writing, arithmetic that the children are missing when they sit at home, say behind a computer. Even if you are a well-resourced family, a well-resourced parent, there's a lot of human interaction with their peers that is missed, that technology can't bridge. So I think the key thing is to appreciate technology is not just reading books. I mean, education is not just reading books. So what aspects of education can technology fill? And which ones must always remain, and how can parents and other stakeholders continue to provide that interaction between children of their age, of the same group and divergent groups, to have that access to this instructor, the teacher, to have access to each other, their peers. I may learn from a teacher some things, but I might be shy to put up my hand in a classroom, or but then if I have the chance to sit with my classmate, I can ask, what did you understand what the teacher said? And that human interaction, that element needs to be bridged and supported. Of course, technology definitely provides us a collaborative opportunity because you have Google Classrooms. Your parents can get more involved in your homework or involved in the class to see what is happening, which they might not have had before when you were in class and education is confined to the school. Now it has come home and the parent is able to interact with the content and the material and be more involved and say, but when my child is learning, are they really paying attention? Are they asking questions? Are they participating? So I think it has been challenges, a mix of challenges and opportunities for parents to become more involved. How do we make sure that the technology allows that parent-child interaction, that parent-teacher interaction? Say, teacher, on the side, maybe chat to the teacher and say, my child has this challenge, this is what I have observed. So there's a mix of challenges and opportunities that we need to see what can technology bridge and what can it not bridge. And therefore, how can the other stakeholders ensure that those are the aspects that make education well-rounded, including things like values. You can't teach values through technology. Some of these things are passed on from the mode of the school, the wearing of the uniform, not running on parade, not carrying a hanky, not chewing gum. There are things that are taught in the education setting because of that interaction. We can't bridge these with technology. So we need to see how do we cater for these other aspects.
Thank you so much, Meralyn, for that. And now I want to bring in Richard, because Richard, you sit at the ICT and National Guidance Ministry. And one of the challenges that's being mentioned is the inequality, the visit inequality, 12% failure in rural schools, 4% failure in urban schools. And the role of a government is really to breach this inequality? You have both the scale, you have the resources, and you have the time to innovate around some of these problems. Richard, at the ministry, what are you doing in terms of using technology to be able to bridge this gap and sort of produce a society that doesn't become unequal in the long run?
Okay, thank you so much, Raymond, for that question. First of all, I'm excited to be part of this discussion. Like you rightly introduced me, I am project coordinator for the National ICT Initiative Support Program at the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. At the ministry and through this particular program, we do support the development of digital solutions. And these are solutions in different sectors. We support Ugandans to develop ICT solutions that can solve problems in different communities as well as create opportunities for Ugandans. And that includes problems in the education sector. At the ministry, we support innovations in different sectors, and that includes the education sector. Over the last few years, we've supported a few solutions in the education sector, including one of the applications that is used at public universities in basically all processes, right from admission to results processing and everything. We have also supported a few solutions around instruction, basically bringing content to the learners at different levels. But maybe just to share, these are solutions that are built by especially young Ugandans who have developed something. We go in and support them and bring these solutions, try to push them to bring these solutions to the market. That is what we are trying to do. We continue to do that. And as I speak right now, a few other solutions are being developed. We are working with the Ministry of Education in developing what we have called the Education Management Information System. It's a system that is going to be used in aggregating data from different areas of education, different institutions, and making sense out of that data.
Thank you so much, Richard. We're going to take a very short break, but when we get back, we'll pick up the conversation on just how well can technology address some of the challenges that are being raised by the panelists in this conversation. Thank you so much for staying with us on EdTech Monday. Of course, we are in a conversation on what can technology do to address the challenges that are currently facing the education sector. And of course, we have a beautiful set of panelists who have exhausted for us what the challenges are. We want to spend these minutes discussing what the solutions can be. I want to start with Meralyn in this conversation now. What are some of the solutions that we can impart now to make education possible for learners during this pandemic?
Well, as we speak, we are still in a lockdown. Schools closed a couple of months ago. And I think one of those options is to really leverage the technologies that are available and to appreciate that we need multiple channels. For example, a World Bank study found that there's more access to mobile phones than there is to radios. You'd have assumed that everybody has a radio, but there's more access to a phone than to the radio. So appreciating that if you use channels like television, which have been sort of promoted recently, there's a certain demographic that you will reach. Understanding that if you use the radio, who will you reach? And if you use the phone, who can you reach? And so trying to provide opportunities across a wide variety of channels will give us the opportunity to reach as many children as possible. And at the end of the day, we also need to remember that technology includes the printer. So even the printed materials that need to reach the learners. I think in the first lockdown, there were challenges with that. How do we ensure that even those in their homes still receive those government-provided or printed materials? Because at the end of the day, yes, I can go online, yes, I can see something on the phone, but if you send an assignment to my parent, I still need to receive some paper, some sort of hard copy. As a learner, I need to write down and do my assignment. So I think we shouldn't forget and get lost in technology being all, you know, very AI and very sophisticated. We need to appreciate the technologies that are close to us and let's optimally utilize them. The radio, I think the government was supposed to provide some radio. I don't know whether they were provided or not, but let us try to have that augment the written materials. When you provide the materials at home, as we said, education is, there's a teacher at the heart of this process. The parents are busy working. How can you give them some tips and tricks or tools to use to support learning at home? Because we as parents became the teachers at home, yet we did not study pedagogy. We don't know the content as well as, you know, we could. So how can we use some of the other platforms, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it is the radio messages or the television, to help the parent to fill that gap of the teacher while the children are at home so that they can help with these materials, as opposed to just providing materials to children and then the household is supposed to figure out how to utilize these materials. So we need to use a multi-channel approach to make sure that we reach as many as possible. But ultimately, I don't think we can do away with the printed word. And this is something that has been available and is one of the things that can reach scale, actually, more easily and allows that sort of feedback. You feel and you can see that your child has completed the assignment, even if you don't have, you know, the modern technologies, but you can see that the child has completed the assignments. You as a parent, you have a chance to go through in the evening after work. You can see that the child is doing something. So let us not forget these most basic but fundamental technologies that allow the child to practice and to continue interacting with the materials. I think let us do that and let's not tire of it because that we can't really do away with that.
Thank you so much, Meralyn, for that. And I want to bring Richard in on the conversation. Richard, what do you think that the ministry can do to enhance some of the applications that are being developed by young developers solving problems in the EdTech community? But also, what is the ministry itself doing at the moment to enhance learning for learners?
Now, Raymond, I'm also a parent, and I want to speak as a parent. Much as I'm a tech enthusiast, I know that there are challenges beyond education, beyond technology in the education sector. Before answering your question, I want us to think about the rural person who doesn't have access to these technologies we are talking about, and indeed Meralyn has just talked about. What are the challenges there? The challenges are teacher absenteeism. The challenges, like Meralyn indicated earlier on, dropout, school dropout, especially of the girl child. Now, coming to your question, as we still probably, as the teachers with me here can probably respond to some of those issues and how we can apply technology to them. The solutions that are being developed, how can the ministry be able to come in and support? Like I indicated, we are already supporting some solutions, but we're above the solutions that are being developed and which really are targeting the urban dweller, the kind of parent who is so much empowered that they will be able to have a laptop for their child and enroll them on a class online and things like that. We are thinking about the other person who is in the rural area where there are connectivity challenges. And I can tell that in this country, much as there are the service providers are doing their best to provide connectivity. The connectivity has not really been good enough in the rural areas. Now, we have a policy at the ministry that that was formed a couple of years ago, the broadband policy that aims to bring connectivity to the all parts of the country. That, I think, will help in bridging the challenge of having connectivity. But then there are also other issues. Devices. These people, the learners, to access content which is online, need devices. They need laptops, they need maybe internet modems and things like that. These are things that we at the ministry believe we can talk to those who are in charge of the fiscal policy and the taxation to be able to have a way in which the prices of devices can be brought down. And also recently we have been working towards getting some people in here, investors, to come and invest in manufacture of devices. Now that is the area of devices. A lot can be said around devices, but indeed we need to work towards making devices available, especially to the rural and peri-urban learners.
Thank you so much, Richard. I want to come very finally to Godfrey, Ashaba, because a lot of these innovations that we're talking about, a lot of this technology we're talking about would end up being implemented by you, the end users. You're the head teacher of a school where young learners come in to learn every day. What do you think works? What technology works for you? What doesn't work? And how can the society, how can donors, how can government help in making sure that education is a commodity that you serve and serve well to learners?
Thank you so much, Raymond. Maybe before I get to the answer, I feel there is this challenge in our education system that needs to be equally addressed. You have an issue of literacy levels in this country being low. According to WESO report 2019, it was discovered that only 33%, Raymond, of learners in primary, between P3 and primary 7, were able to read and comprehend a P2 story. Meaning 67% of the learners between P3 and P7 could not read and comprehend a P2 story. Again, 45% of the same category of learners were able to do a division and complete it successfully, a P2 division, and complete it successfully. So you then realize that as we work, as we teach, as educational institutions continue to do their work, there is a very big need of improving numeracy and literacy levels, particularly in primary, because then they set a foundation for what happens after. So in my opinion, and I'm grateful to Richard because he's talked about government giving us devices. Look at the situation. It's hard to set up libraries in schools because libraries are very expensive. Books are very expensive to buy. I mean textbooks. But if, for example, we were given iPads, I'm imagining the infrastructure is well worked on. I'm imagining we have electricity, say solar, and I'm imagining the teachers and the parents are properly trained. Give them iPads, but upload all textbooks children use in specific classes on these iPads, such that someone is having a library, someone is carrying a library on an iPad. And again, Raymond, we have a communication gap as education institutions between us and our clients, the parents. Most of the education institutions tend to use circulars to communicate to parents. Others use SMSs. Of course, some have moved beyond that. They have portals with parents to communicate. You send a circular, a parent reaches home when the child is asleep and goes back when the child is still asleep. They never read. 2, SMSs. You know, people are tired of SMSs. They get promotional SMSs from telecoms. They get wedding introduction messages, these SMSs. So they don't read these messages quite often. And yet we say the more the teacher is in touch with the parent, the better the learner becomes. They tend to learn better, they tend to perform better, and they tend to behave well, knowing that the teacher is in touch with the parent. Maybe the use of technology could help us here, and we create links between ourselves and parents. Some schools have already done it. We've moved towards that direction. And maybe finally, the management challenges. As institutions, we have management challenges. What are our appraisal systems? Are they subjective? Can they be bettered by technology? How do we manage time? Late coming is at, I think, 23% in the country. Absenteeism is at 27%. How can we have teachers in school, children in school, to ensure learning takes place using technology? Maybe if, for example, we installed biometric machines, if you realize the national teachers' colleges in Uganda have a system they use, actually they call it time on task system. Such that when a teacher comes, they log in. They log out when they are going back home, as well as children. And you are able to get the information at the end of the term and use it to appraise them when the year ends, and use it to make them improve their learning.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. Thank you so much, Meralyn. And thank you so much, Richard, our panelists today, for explaining and exploring for us just what challenges exist in the education sector and how technology can fix those challenges. We're very glad to have had you on the show, and we hope that you who has been at home watching and listening, you've taken something from this program today. We're going to close this for now, but EdTech Monday returns, of course, once every Monday, every month, discussing issues concerning education and technology, and just how technology can help bridge the gap of access to education for learners, particularly during this pandemic. Have yourselves a good day.